Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Tony Prohl with Prohl Design, and I'm here to show you some 3D. And what kind of 3D are we doing today? We are doing a donut in 3D. Yes, this little tutorial is going to show you from start to finish how to make a donut using Lightwave 3D. Why a donut? Well, because it's pretty popular online. From Blender to Maya, everyone seems to want to copy that Blender guru's donut. And I'm here to show you how simple it is to use Lightwave 3D in making this cool donut. So let's get into this. Welcome to Lightwave Modeling. So we're going to use Modeler here to model our donut. And just a few things. Lightwave Modeler has a quad viewport. That's good to work in a quad viewport here. So that's your perspective view and your top, back, and right views. A few little things about Modeler to get you guys going quicker. A layer panel, I brought this up here. That is over here, or F7 on your keyboard. Layers is kind of like Photoshop in a way. It's basically just a list of your items, and then it references these here. You see when I keep adding these layers, it adds more there. So this is our layers panel. And these buttons have this little split because you can toggle between foreground and background, which you can see I'm doing there. See foreground, background. All right, and then the other panel that's important is the numeric panel. You don't have to use the numeric panel. Most of the stuff you can do dynamically. But the N keyboard brings up the numeric panel there. And that's pretty much all you need to really get started. At least that's what I use. You don't have to, but I just like having these panels up here. And let's get started with our model. So let's go to the Create tab. And let's go to the Torrid. So I'm going to go ahead and click in the top viewport here. And there you go. Look at that. I have a nice scrumptious looking donut. Really not worried about scale in this tutorial. Now it is a 1 meter donut, which is kind of big, but that's all right. I'll have fun with it. I like big donuts, and I can't not lie. All right. Anyways, here's the tools for the Torrid tool, but we're not really gonna mess with those tools. We just drag and scale until we get something we like, and then we go ahead and hit enter to commit. Now I want to make sure it's centered because I didn't do that in the numeric. So I'm going to hit the F2 just to center real quickly. So now it's centered in my viewport. And it looks good. Now one cool thing, you see kind of this retro look right now, right? You see those polygons. One thing to easily remedy that is hit that tab button. And as you can see, that cycles the subdivision surfaces. So it adds more polygons like live, right? So it's basically non-destructible. So if I hit tab, it just keeps it smooth, and that looks pretty good. We have a donut, but it's kind of boring looking, right? It's just very clean donut. So let's go ahead and modify that by giving it some noise. So I'm going to go to my jitter tool, modify, and then jitter. And I'm going to type in, let's see, 40 millimeters, probably half of what we had for our donut size. Let's see what that looks like. There we go. Look at that. Now we got some nice kind of wrinkles in our donut. If I turn off subdivision by hitting tab, you can see it a little bit better what it did. Yes, and that's what we want for our donut. There we go. Now what I want to do is change this color. I don't like gray donuts, right? Ugh, old donut. We want a yummy fresh donut. So let's go ahead and hit Q to change the surface. And let's go ahead and type in donut. And here we're just going to do a quick thing. We're going to change the color of the donut. So let's go to hue, give it some kind of nice yellowish color, and turn on smoothing so the normals are smooth. And there we go. Now we have a nice, yummy, colorful donut. And while we're doing names, let's go ahead and name this layer here, donut. There we go. Now, what is a donut missing? It is missing some delicious frosting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my polygon button down here. So here's point edges polygons, and I'm going to lasso select the top of this donut. And to lasso select, it's just using the right mouse button. And if I did that on the donut, see it selects polygons, or if I did say edges, or if I did points. All right, and then to drop the selection, you just double click the negative space, go back to polygons again, and then go ahead and let's drag the lasso tool through the middle, over the top, and look at that. Now we have selected these polygons here. And what I'm going to do is I like working in layers because it's kind of like, like a history in a way. So you can work in layers, do your modifications without affecting, say, something you liked. So I like the way this donut looks. I don't want to keep messing with it. So here I'm going to copy this, Control C to copy, select layer 2, Control V to paste. There we go. Now we have our frosting in a frosting layer, right? Let's go ahead and give it a surface real quick, just like we did for the donut. Give it a different color, pink. Named it frosting, hit OK. There we go. And now let's see what these two look like together. Looks pretty good to me. But you know what? Our frosting's a little thin, it's super thin. So we want to thicken that up. So the best way to do that is select the layer. I'm just going to head and put the donut in the background layer there, so we kind of see both. And you kind of see that it's sticking through the top. We don't want that either. So I'm going to go to my multiply tab. I'm going to use the thicken tool. And you can see the viewport change because we're in the thicken mode. We have the options here to do it, but I'm just going to drag it, left mouse drag to see, thicken up my frosting. So I'm just going to go a little bit above there like that. Let's see what we got. Looks good. Hit enter. And now we got frosting on our donut. Let's see what they both look like. There we go. Looks like it's just hovering too high, so I'm going to select that. And the way I did that is I just selected some of the polygons in my texture perspective viewport. If you do it here, you'll select through the model, but if you do it just on here, so you only select the polygons through the textured shaded viewport, or it can be even texture wire if you want to see the wire. See? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to select just the frosting by just selecting, you can just select one poly, and then you can use the back bracket key and it basically selects connected polygons. So now it just selected the frosting only. And I'm going to hit my T button, that's for transform, for move, and I'm just going to go nudge it down a little bit in that viewport until it kind of touches, and yeah, looks good. That's all I need to do. And now we have our donut. Looks good. But now what is it missing, our donut? It's missing sprinkles. So what I'm going to do now is I have two layers. I just want to put the donut in one layer. So I control cut that away to kind of remove them, and then hit Control V, and then I pasted the donut. So now our donut is in layer 1. Let's click on layer 2 and let's get a sprinkle going. So I'm in layer 2. I'm going to go ahead and create, and I'm going to go ahead and do a capsule. So I'll draw it from the front here, and then you can see it's too many subdivisions, so I'll go ahead and turn that to 1, and I'm going to go ahead and 0 out. I'm going to hit enter, and I believe this is going to be pretty large. Select the bottom button here to see what my donut looks like. Yep, that is a massive sprinkle. So let's go ahead and scale this down. We're going to go to our Modify tab, and then the transforms are all here at the bottom. So T for transform, like I said before. So what we're going to do is use our size, or Shift H is for size, and just kind of scale it down on the top until we kind of say, yeah, that's kind of a good size for a sprinkle compared to the donut. And then maybe what I'll do is stretch it a little bit. So what I did just there, I just hit Shift A, and that basically zooms in on the model. So because we're in layer 2, it will zoom up on that. And then we're just going to even stretch it down a little bit. There we go. Looks good. Looks like a sprinkle. Let's give it a surface name while we're at it. Sprinkle. Let's change it to white. Hit OK. And now let's rename the layer too while we're at it. Sprinkle. So now we have a donut and just one sprinkle. Yep. Modeling is done and complete. So let's go ahead and save this object as donut fin 2. So we're done with modeling. So that's our model. We're good to go. let's go ahead and go right here to this little tab and send object to layout. And we're going to see layout's going to open. Boop, and our donut should be in the middle. Once it loads it, there we go. So what we want to do in layout basically is it has this one viewport. You can see that I'm in the perspective view. It has a camera, lights, environment lights. This is like a sunlight, distant light, and our camera. And I like to work in multiple viewports here as well. You can kind of work in one if you want, but I kind of prefer having multiple viewports to just have a little bit more organization. So hit the F3 until you kind of find a viewport setting or display you like. There you go. I like this one because it gives me this nice big viewport and then smaller ones. And what I want to do now is I really just want to make sure I'm in a good space to work. So here's my perspective view. This is my right view. I'll change that to flat, front face wireframe. These are the shading modes. And I'll leave this as my perspective view. So one thing I want to show you is our camera view. So when I switch over to the camera view, it's right there on the side. It's kind of an awful camera view. So you can move your camera around to kind of get what you want. But what you could do is, because some people like working in perspective, like, oh, I'm really on this donut here. Looks good. I like the way it looks. You can actually turn this perspective view to your camera view. So let's go ahead and do that, at least to show that. I'm going to select my camera just by selecting down here. This is where your objects, lights, cameras are. So I'll select that, and then I have my camera selected, or I could just select the camera like that as well. And I like the way this looks, so I'm going to match that. So I'm going to go hit this little drop down key. I'm going to go to match perspective and selected camera. And now when I switch this viewport to my camera view, you see it matches now. And I like that. So let's go ahead and keep this viewport. In fact, I can even, maybe get a little bit closer to this donut, a little bit more personal, because I'm coming for you, donut. You're going to be mine, all mine. I kind of like that. And what I just did there, if you hit the T button to move for transform, just like in Modeler, but here, if I move my left mouse button, it is the Z and the X axis together, and then the right one is the Y. There we go. I like the way that looks. This would be our little render viewport here. So we'll use this for our rendering. And let's get this donut party started, because what's a donut without sprinkles? We have one sprinkle there in the middle. There it is. So what we need to do first to basically add sprinkles to our donut is we need to go to our objects. So they're down here. We have donut and sprinkle. I'm going to choose the donut. So I have the donut selected. I'm going to go to properties, or you can hit P for properties. So I'll just click the button. And then we have all these tabs here. We want the instance generator. So I hit the instancer tab, and I'm going to hit instant generator, and I'm going to bring up its property panel. I can close the object properties. I don't need that. So this is the tool we're going to work in to get our sprinkles on the top of our donut. So how do we do that? We just need to add our sprinkles. So let's hit the sprinkles. So add object sprinkles. There we go. And let's go ahead and change this to shaded solid so we can see our sprinkles. And let's go change this to the surface, because what I want to paint on, I want to dip my sprinkles in my frosting, of course, just the frosting. And I want to use the brush tool. And there we go. So now what I need to do is paint. So I'm going to click this paint button, and just FYI, this will have a green box around it because now we're in sprinkle mode, right? We're in paint mode. So the green box means we're going to paint. And to get out of that mode, you just click it off. So make sure before you do anything else to always click that off. So let's click it back on so we can paint. So there we go. There's the brush in the middle. And if I just start moving it on the donut, you'll see we got delicious sprinkles. But right now they're all facing the same direction. Let's fix that. So under the instancer, we're going to go to our rotation tab, and we're just going to do the normal alignment. See, so now it's going to the normals of the frosting. And basically what we want to do is change our rotation. We want the random, and let's do -50 on the heading, and then let's say 150 on the max for min and max. We can change things like our stretch too. Let's do -20. And let's do 60. So we got nice kind of random shapes there. Scale looks good. Maybe we can just bump up the sprinkles a little bit more just to, yeah, that looks kind of cool. 120. And let's change our radius of our brush to be smaller. So let's go ahead and make it a smaller brush. And let's continue painting on some delicious sprinkles. There we go. Now you paint with the left mouse button, but if you right click, you can remove sprinkles. So I'm removing some sprinkles there. It's looking pretty good. Some more sprinkles. I like the way it looks. Let me change the scale back down to 100. That looks a little better. Yeah, so have fun with it. Just paint as much as you want. Maybe even in the camera view, we'll add some here just to get some more in our camera shot. That looks good. I think I want to erase these ones. There we go. There we go. Looking good. So now that we're done with our sprinkles, remember just to unclick the paint button so we're out of that. Now we have our donut and sprinkles are ready. So now what's next? Well, next we need to basically do our surfacing for the donut, because by default, if I put VPR on to see what it looks like rendering, it's kind of plain, right? So it's just using the plain shading we added. So let's spruce that up. And while we're in VPR, let's go ahead and do some optimizations there. So I'm going to click this little key here next to it, the settings key for VPR. I'm going to put draft mode, half res mode, so it renders faster. And another cool little trick is we go to our render tab, render properties. We can go ahead and go to our render tab here and turn on noise filterings to GPU. There we go. See how fast it cleaned it up. And that looks good to me. We're ready to get moving with our surfacing. So for surfacing, there's a lot of ways to get to it, but we'll just bring up the surface editor. 3 different surfaces: donut, frosting, and sprinkle. You can also use VPR. If you shift click on any of these, you'll see it toggle between the surface. What we're going to do is use a reference image. So let's go to the image editor. Let's go ahead and load an image up. Here's a donut right here. So double click that to bring up this donut. Well, I'm going to grab these colors here and use them. We're going to use all native shading properties right now. No textured images, things like that. We'll just use this image to grab colors. Right now we have one color on there, so we need to go to the node graph of this donut. When I double click that, it brings up the node graph. We have all these different shading types here, but we're not going to go crazy with the nodes. We're just going to use a gradient node, just kind of like if you were in Photoshop. I have VPR running in the corner so I can see what I'm doing with the rendering. I'm going to plug this color into color and boop, it's going to turn the donut black. But we don't want that. We don't want an old yucky donut. So let's go ahead and get some colors for this donut. So how I did that was I just double click that. And we do want it to be the y-axis because our donut is on the ground. We want to wrap around the y. And let's start changing the color. So let's click the color, and then let's pick from screen rather. Pick the color, hit OK. Click another one inside here. Let's go ahead and do the same. Pick from screen. Let's do one of these lighter colors. All right. And then do it again a third time. Pick from screen. We want a darker one again. And what I'm going to do is also I'm going to hit just repeat on these. And basically all I'm going to do now is kind of just nudge these around till it looks how I want it to look in our donut. So let's make sure the top is the nice dark. There we go. We want to make sure that that is our middle. And we want to bring in some more darks to the bottom there. That's looking yummy. There we go. I like the way that looks. That looks just like the image. So we're good to go with this here. So let's go ahead and close all that out for the donut. And one thing, let's turn our specular level down. So let's go ahead and turn that down to like 5%, because really it's a donut. It's not going to be super reflective, and we don't want our dough to be reflective. But our frosting, on the other hand, we do want that. So let's go to our frosting now, and let's do a few things here. Let's click on its color, and let's go ahead and pick from the screen. Let's pick this pink from this donut image. There we go, matches. And let's go ahead and give our frosting some subsurface scattering, so it gives it that kind of neat, nice translucent look. So let's try 80%. It's looking yummy. And let's try the distance to be smaller, maybe 20. All right, I like the way that's looking. That looks great. And what I want to do is kind of add, looks like there's a little kind of noise going on with our frosting. So I'm just going to add a little procedural texture to it. So let's double click this guy, and we're going to add a turbulence texture. So Lightwave has lots of 2D and 3D textures, but I want turbulence. So let's do 3D texture, turbulent noise. And I'm going to add it to the bump channel. So we're going to give it some little bump to our donut, which is way too much. So double click that, and let's go ahead and turn this down to like 10%. And let's do 2 just to scale it up so it just has bigger distribution of this bump and a really tiny percentage. Let's close that out. And now on to our sprinkles. What we need to do is basically use the gradient tool like we just used before. So gradient. So we have a gradient tool here, and then what we needed to use is instant info. So we're going to click on instant info. And this is going to allow me to shade all the different colors of the sprinkles here. So again, plug the color to color. Plug the fix random into input. Double click the gradient, and let's go ahead and start adding colors. We're going to pick from the screen again. Let's pick this red. There we go. And you know, they're all pretty primary colors, they're a little bit more native. So what we can do is just pick from the color picker. So what we'll do instead though, we need to set this to step as well. So as you see, if I leave it on this hermit and I change this color, it does like a gradient. We don't want that. We want our colors to be stepped between each other. So see, it's just locked down there. So that's what we want. Let's click another color. So let's do this yellow. And then we'll click another one, step, and see we got yellow and red sprinkles. We want now a green.
There we go. Again, step, repeat, get blue. Go, again, step, and we want a purple. Yep, and then another one, step, and we want this kind of fuchsia. And then how about a white for our last one? Make sure it's stepped. And there we go, look at that. We have awesome looking sprinkle with awesome looking colors, making me hungry.
All right, so our donut is pretty much done for the most part, but kind of it's floating there in space, in 3D space here. And why is it doing that? We want to, let's make this a nice pretty advertisement for our donut shop, shall we? So let's go ahead and save all while we're at it. Save all objects, and then save the scene. So you always have to save all is my recommendation. So if you do any modifications to your shaders and objects and the scene, they all get saved out. So just a little tip there, always do the save all function. Now what we want to do is spruce this up. What I want to do first is our lighting. It's just a distant light, and a distant light's more like your sun. We don't want that. So let's go ahead and change that to an area light. So click on properties. And now I'm going to select area light. There we go. And you see it's just a little tiny box light, more like a studio light. And what I want to do to make it easier for my lighting, I'm going to hit the M button, and I'm going to target this to the donut object. So it's targeted. And now when I move my light around, you see it just kind of circles around the donut. Let's go ahead and clone this light now. So hit Control C to clone. Hit OK. And then let's go ahead and move this one over here as like a rim light. And I'm going to clone it again one more time. And then I want a key light. So what I'll do with this light is I'll change its properties. I'll go to its properties here, light properties, and I'm going to change it to 6. Let me make it a warmer light. So go to Kelvin and let's warm it up a little bit. Scrumptious, looks really good. So next thing I want to do is add a ground plane because we're kind of floating in space. But before actually I do that, I'm going to go to my backdrop because we're still in sunlight kind of backdrop. So let's change that by clicking on backdrop here. Double click the backdrop icon and then uncheck backdrop. See, I was using this gradient before. We don't want that. Let's just change this to white. So now look at that. Looks just like a kind of a studio thing, endless studio. But we don't have any shadowing or surfacing going on because we have no ground plane. Let's go to our modeling tab here, geometry, and go to ground plane. We'll leave the size is fine, or maybe we'll make it, let's see, let's do 60 and 60. Yes, save the object because we want a pretty big ground plane and hit OK. You see it zoomed out the perspective because the object's huge, just to show you the size of it. Now our camera is super huge. So I'm going to use my bracket keys here, and I'm going to basically use them to change the grid spacing. So that's what I'm doing here. So see how the lights now are kind of smaller than the donut, which we kind of want. So a little bit easier. So the grid spacing just allows you to change the spacing and size of the grid to items. So find something you like. So if you ever get lost, you can use the grid spacing to help refocus. Our donut is sinking in the ground. So I'm going to go into this view here, select my donut, hit T for transform, and I'm just going to nudge it up above the ground plane there. There we go. And let's go ahead and nudge my camera up a little bit too. So we get a nice kind of cool dynamic shot. That's looking pretty good. All right, I like the way that looks. Our ground plane's a little bit too reflective. Let's hold shift down and select it in VPR. Now we're in the ground plane. And let's change this to pretty much white and change our spec down to maybe 10% and our roughness to 20. There we go. That looks nice and pretty. Looks just like an advertisement shot, and it's making me hungry. All right, but let's fix this ad up a little bit by doing one more thing to make it a little bit more dynamic and cool looking. I want to basically add sparkles now to our ground plane, so let's do that. I'm going to select the ground plane, so go to Objects, and then Ground Plane, or I could select it in the viewport as well. And then I'm going to go to its properties. I'm going to add the instance generator to it. And let's go ahead and do the same thing like we did before. Sprinkles we want them to be shaded, and we want to be the surface, the ground plane surface, and the brush tool. We'll go ahead and put on the paint, and our paintbrush shows up. Same thing we want to do here. We might as well just pick the normal. Let's change this to -60 and 160 on the max. Let's do the scale, -20 and then 40. Let's go ahead and change this to a wireframe so we can see. Yeah, painting our beautiful sprinkles around the donut on the ground plane. Let's go ahead and do the same here. I want kind of a lot of sprinkles going around the donut just underneath it, like it was just a sprinkle explosion. Why not? Looks cool. So we can even change our brush size. Let's do half the size to make more sprinkles around the donut. I mean, we can just put lots and lots of sprinkles going on here. Maybe some trails of sprinkles.
There we go. Definitely want more up front here. I'm gonna add. Yeah, just keep sprinkling it up on the ground plane until you like what you see. Maybe a few back there. I don't think I want to have too much like a negative space. That's looking good to me.
And now, if I go to my VPR, let's flip that on and just see what we got. Oh yeah, I like the way that looks. Looks good to me. I think we are done with our shot. Now, how do we render this? If you want to save it out, so you could save out the VPR render, but we want to save out the actual render. So let's go ahead and turn this off. Let's go to our render tab, and it's F9. You can hit F9 or hit the render frame. So as you see, we're going to start rendering, and it's rendering based on the CPU renderer. We'll do some cleanup. Now, there is the Octane renderer in Lightwave now in 2023, so we can use the GPU rendering. Maybe I'll do a demo of that one later with the donut scene, but right now we're using the CPU render and we're using GPU noise filtering. So we're almost done. And there you go, there's your render. So we can close the render thing, and here's our image. If we wanted to save it out, we can save RGB and then PNG. Now that we're done with our render, it looks scrumptious and delicious. I need to go get myself some coffee and donuts. Don't forget, after we did all this work, to always save all. Save your scene, very important part of Lightwave, so save the objects as well as the scene. All right, guys, if you enjoy this video, please like, subscribe, and share. I'll try to make some more cool videos. We do interior design work and custom fancy geo walls. We can build a lot of cool things in Lightwave 3D and other 3D software as well. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.